So to kick things off, if you're not familiar with me already, I'm Nicole. I'm the marketing lead here at PetPocketbook. I'm super excited to be joined today by Anne-Marie at Tiny Paws. She'll be chatting with us a little bit more about reporting and bookkeeping, especially. So I'm really excited to have her today. Thank you, Anne-Marie, so much for joining us. Really excited to share everything with you all today. Just to kind of kick things off and tell you a little bit more about what we're doing. We have a couple things that we want to share with you today. As far as questions go, if you want to hold on to your questions or submit them in the chat, Anne-Marie and I are going to take some time at the end so that we can go through everything together. So I'll share some information, Anne-Marie will share as well, and then we'll go ahead and answer questions at the end today. All right. So to kick things off, sorry, my mouse. There we go. Here's the agenda for today. So introducing Anne-Marie. So learn a little bit more about who Anne-Marie is if you haven't met her before, if you're not familiar with Tiny Paws. They're a bookkeeping service. So anyone who's looking for some help with that, I know as a pet care professional, you might be a little bit unfamiliar or uncomfortable with numbers. So she's going to show us some insight today about getting more comfortable with your numbers. And I'll also start by sharing with you about what's available in PetPocketbook in terms of reporting, and show you how you'll be able to collect that information right within your PetPocketbook account. So beyond just having those reports available to you, what do you do with that data once you have it? That can be a little bit overwhelming about where to start and what information you're actually able to collect through the platform. So we'll also talk about how to use that information to get to some KPIs, key performance indicators for your pet care business that Anne-Marie will be able to speak to a little bit more. And like I said, at the end, we'll open up for questions. So if you have questions, you'll be able to submit those in the chat and then we'll take a look through them together at the end. All right, let's dig in. All right. I first met Anne-Marie at the NAPS conference in the beginning of March. If you haven't been to the NAPS conference before, you should check it out. It was really fun and awesome. As I was sitting there hearing Anne-Marie's presentation, I thought, oh, this information is so helpful. I'm really excited to share that with everyone at PetPocketbook who's on our platform. And even if they're not on the platform, it's such valuable information. So we connected in March and I invited Anne-Marie to chat with us here today. Anne-Marie, would you like to share a little bit more about yourself?
Sure. So I was a pet sitter before I became a bookkeeper. I ran a business out of North Carolina for about 5 years, from 2017 to 2022. In the summer of 22, we relocated to Colorado out of North Carolina. At that time, I sold my business and decided to make a shift to bookkeeping. Our business, Tiny Paws Bookkeeping, is fairly niched and specific to the pet care industry. About 90% of our clientele are pet sitters and dog walking businesses across the United States. We have clients that are first year in business all the way up to multi-decades in their business. So we see a range of clientele in that. But being able to serve now other pet sitters and teach them how to understand their numbers and be able to make informed decisions is really what has driven my passion to bookkeeping.
Awesome. Thanks for sharing, Anne-Marie.
Mm-hmm.
All right, so let's chat about what's available in PetPocketbook. So our reporting dashboard is probably, I think, about a year old now. So before that, there was not so much information available in PetPocketbook. So based on the feedback from all of you, we're able to create this dashboard so you can collect more information about your business and its performance over time. So the different reports that are available in PetPocketbook are your sales trends reports, your staff reports, financials, clients, payouts, and taxes. And all of these reports are going to be available through CSV. So what that means is you can download that information. You'll have the raw data. So if you're working with someone like Anne-Marie, you'll be able to share that information with them so that they'll be able to help you get those numbers for your business. Or if you're going to figure it out on your own, based on some of the information that Anne-Marie is sharing with you today, you'll be able to do that. So what does this even mean? Where is the reporting dashboard? How do I get into it? How do I get those downloads? I'm going to go ahead and share my screen so we can chat through some of that. And just bear with me while I pull up information. Okay, So in PetPocketbook, to get to your reporting dashboard, you'll find that from your blue menu bar. So if you tap on reports, it'll bring you to that first report here, which is your sales trend report. From your sales trend report, you'll be able to view your historical sales trends over time, and you can select a date range. So right now I have that set to a custom date range, and I've just entered just this year. So I'm looking at my historical information and a projection based on appointments that I have scheduled in the future. Right now I have the daily breakdown filter on, but I'm going to go ahead and put that over to monthly just to make it a little bit easier for us to see. So from this report, you'll be able to see, like I said, historical information. So dark blue would be historicals with that year-over-year comparison too. So it makes it a little bit easier for you to take a look at things and how things are progressing over time. And then you'll notice these light blue bars too, and that's going to be a projection based on the appointments that you have scheduled. So keep in mind, this is our demo account, so a lot of this information will be inflated here, but it's a nice way to see that information laid out for you. And this is all broken down by category too, and then by the type of service. So if you really want to dig into things further, you'll be able to do that. And this can help identify, seasonal trends, if you have a slow time or if you have a busy time. So if you have a busy time, if you'll need to staff up, or if you have a slow time and maybe that's a time where you want to tackle some projects throughout the year. Can also help you identify your most popular services. So looking at my dark blue bars right now, you can see that okay, I've done some dog walking this year, done okay with my hiking, but it's primarily been overnight. So I can kind of see where that income has been coming from. And then I can see a projection. So not a ton of overnights coming up, but then my other services, I can see, okay, my hiking looks pretty strong this year and also dog walking as well. And let's take a look at the staff tab. So here you'll be able to see the compensation that your team's earning, and this will be all broken down as well. If you update that date range, again, you'll be able to see that projection into the future. So you'll be able to see from that previous report, okay, that's everything that I'm projected to bring in from those appointments scheduled. And then from this tab here, you'll see a projection of what you'll need to pay your staff too. So you'll be able to kind of combine the two to understand where you'll be at in the future and where you have been historically. So that includes the compensation that they've earned and also the tips that they've earned too. So you'll be able to keep track of those tips right in this dashboard too. And then taking a look at our financials report, this is the report that you'll want to use for your taxes at the end of the year. So what's the difference between my financial reports and my sales trends reports? That's a great question. And sometimes it's not immediately obvious. So the difference here is this is going to include the amount billed includes any adjustments. So in your PetPocketbook bills, you can add adjustments like discounts, or you can add additional charges. So that is always included in this amount billed. And if you live in an area that you'll need to charge sales tax and you have your PetPocketbook account set up to automatically include that on invoices, that's going to be included in this amount billed too. And it's important to point out that this is the date that your invoices are sent. So if you do weekly billing, for example, you'll see that kind of trend each week when that information comes in. And then of course, the payments that you're receiving too. So because you log all of the payments that you collect in PetPocketbook, you'll see that broken down too. So you'll see the type of payments that you're collecting. That way it makes it a little bit easier to reconcile your books. And of course, if they go directly through our platform, it just automatically populates. So there's nothing that you'll have to do. I do want to stress here, when you're logging those payments that you collect outside of PetPocketbook, like a cash or a Venmo payment, always make sure to add the date that the client paid you. So it's not just going to be the date that you remembered to enter into PetPocketbook, it's actually the date that you received that payment. That's going to make it easier for you to reconcile your books at the end of the year and understand when you actually collected those payments. And just pointing out again, if you have someone like Anne-Marie, who's an accountant, you'll be able to download these reports. You can just send them the export of the CSV, or you can also set them up as a team member in PetPocketbook, so as a staff member. And because the platform doesn't charge you by the additional staff member, it doesn't cost you anything to be able to add them to your account. So they can just hop right into the platform themselves and grab that information if they need to. So let's quickly take a look at the client charts. This will help you keep track of your client growth over time. So your total clients, active clients, and new clients. So you'll be able to see how you're able to grow the business. So if I set this date range to last year, let's go ahead and update that together. So what this will now show us is how our client growth has kind of changed over the past year. So last year we had about total clients 100, only about 50% of them were active, so 50 clients. But we'll be, oh, sorry, not 50. These numbers here will show you, so it'll actually tell you the number of active clients. So we had 29 and 36. So this is actually just the date or the axis here on that graph. So just wanted to point that out. But this will actually show you there the comparison. So this time last year, how many of your clients were active and how many this year were active. And then same here goes with new clients. You'll be able to see how many clients are new and how many clients maybe were new last year. So it's really helpful to see how you're growing your business over time. Are you bringing in new clients? What's the difference compared to last year? So super helpful as you're looking at growing the business. And then, of course, these reports, and please excuse this is our demo account, so it's a little bit different. But in your area, in your account, you'll be able to really drill down and see where your clients are located. So based on your service range, you can see the concentration. Okay, we're mostly focused in the Boston area, and maybe we have a couple clients who are outside of our normal radius that we help serve. And then on the left, you'll have this clients by breakdown chart. So you'll see the top spend of your clients. So both the lifetime value of your PetPocketbook account, and then for that last year, so the date range that you've selected. So how I most frequently see this used is to identify who your top clients are. I know at the end of the year, a lot of people do thank you gifts for clients. Maybe your budget has changed and you can't actually send gifts to everyone. So maybe you just want to focus on who your top clients are. This will help you identify them so that you're able to say, okay, here are my top 10. Let's do gifts for just them. And then maybe going forward, if you have the budget to, you'll be able to give gifts to everyone. And then lastly is vaccinations. So not really financially related, but this is really helpful to help you keep track of the status of vaccines. I know in the past year, there was that canine mystery illness and there was a lot of uncertainty and, our pets' health. This will help you keep track of that over time, and you'll be able to filter by the type of vaccine, if there's a specific family that you want to check in on, or maybe anything that's expiring soon, so you can send out those reminders. Let's take a look at the payouts report. So when clients pay through the platform, everything automatically gets deposited into your account, but we lump those payments together. So sometimes it can be a little bit confusing, what makes up this payment. So that's what this report is for. It helps reconcile the books. So we can see of this one payment, which payments that we collected. So this one payment was from Jack. If this was from other clients as well, we would see that listed here. So it helps you understand when payments are arriving. You can see historical information and then anything that's on its way too. And at the top here, you can see that any charges or any refunds too. So if you do have to issue refunds, you'll be able to see that in the payouts report too. And then lastly, taxes. So if you do live in an area where you're collecting taxes and set that up in PetPocketbook, this is a super easy way to keep track of that. So because they automatically get added to those invoices, you'll see that in your reporting dashboard. So you'll be able to view this information by month, by quarter, and by year. And like I said, always be able to download these through CSV. All right, let's hop back into the PowerPoint so we can look at how these are helpful. So a little bit will be repetitive here, but just wanted to emphasize that sales trends report will really help you identify your busy season or your slower times. So identifying when you might need to hire staff, or if you want to work on projects for your business, when those slow times are, so you can use that time to kind of make the most of it. Identifying your most popular services and your least popular services and how you might be able to grow that over time. And then looking at those staff reports, this is how you understand your labor costs. So staff earnings, including their wages and their tips. One thing that I learned from Joe at Walker Scout here is that he often uses this information to advertise a job listing. So, based on the job listing, you're going to earn this for your wages, but including tips, it might include that. So it might be $10 for your wages, but if you're earning more in tips, maybe you can advertise that from $10 to $18. So that's really exciting to be able to have that information here in that dashboard. And you'd be able to see what you already paid out to your team and what's a projection. So what's coming up that you'll need to pay out. All right, so talking about financials, like I said, this information is how you'll be able to collect that for your taxes. So the billings and your income. And this is always broken down by type. And I wanted to point out, I mentioned logging payments when you receive them and not just when you're remembering to log them. So as a reminder, this is what that screen looks like. So if someone pays you in cash, you'll enter that amount, any tips you collected, and we entered already that was cash. And then if this was paid a date that is not today, you're going to want to enter that. So if you actually collected this payment on Tuesday from the client, just remember to change that date over. That way, when you get to reporting and looking at that income, you'll be able to have the actual dates. And Anne Marie can probably emphasize that point and speak to why it's so important. All right, and we dove into the clients tab already, but just a reminder, looking at client growth over time, looking at their lifetime spend, helping you identify who those top clients are and where your service area is. And then payouts too. So this is really helpful, whether you're doing it on your own or if you have a bookkeeper like Anne Marie, that'll show you a breakdown of everything that's been included in each payout. Like I said, that does include refunds too. I also wanted to point out for anyone who's using QuickBooks, we do have a QuickBooks integration. So if you're interested in getting that set up, just reach out to us, support@petpocketbook.com. We'll have a set up time to help you get that set up. And that way, all of this information like your invoices and your payments data can all get synced right over to your QuickBooks account. So if that's something that you're doing manually right now, let's set up that sync for you so that we can get that it's kind of streamlined and automated a little bit more. And then taxes. So if you do have those taxes, it's an easy way for you to collect that and then view it by month, by quarter, and by year. And just a reminder, if you need to export those, that's that download button here. The way it works, you'll receive an email with those CSVs so you can take a look at them, dive into it, or you can just forward it along to your bookkeeper. All right, I'm going to pass off the torch to Anne Marie here. Anne Marie, I will go ahead and pull up your deck here, or if you want, you can share your screen, whichever is easier for you.
That's fine. Do you click to the next if you've got it up here, or can I?
Yes.
Okay. Well, wonderful. I have enjoyed getting to learn more and more about PetPocketbook. Certainly its integration with QuickBooks has been one of our favorite things. We do have a couple of clients that we work with who use it. And when we talk about bookkeeping, the reason to have good bookkeeping is we always want to be the most accurate we can be with our numbers. We want to capture every little bit of income that comes into your business, as well as every expense that goes out, making sure that we maximize business deductions, that we are correctly reporting income to government agencies. All of that is the biggest reason why you should have some sort of bookkeeping system in place. For us in my business, we rely heavily on QuickBooks. That is our software of choice. And so when we talk about numbers today, and we'll get into some nuts and bolts of which numbers to look at, it's really a combination of the income that you can see and pull in through your scheduling software like PetPocketbook, and a combination of the expenses that you're also realizing going out in your business. And being able to combine those two pieces of information really does give you a big picture look at how your business is performing. Understanding how to interpret those numbers is what we're going to talk about a little bit today. Nicole, if you can click through, I'm going to run. We've already talked about who I am, but I own Tiny Paws Bookkeeping. I also own Tiny Paws Pet Sitting. I run both businesses side by side here in Colorado. Bookkeeping has turned into a brand new passion for me. I don't know that I'll ever give up pet sitting now that I've been in the business and industry for so long. But bookkeeping really lets me get introduced to other businesses out there. And I think it's super fascinating to understand that everybody runs their business just a little bit differently. So when we talk about business performance, we'll give some industry guidelines or generalizations, but truly it's all about your individual business. And what works for you is not always going to be the same that works for everybody else. And that's where I have discovered a true passion, is kind of piecing all of those little parts of your business together to get a picture of what works for each individual owner. If you'll click to the next one. So like I said, I owned a business in North Carolina. That was my team in blue at the top there. The Pet Professionals, we were just outside of Raleigh, North Carolina for 5 years. I was solo for about 3 of those years. In February of 2020, I hired my first pet sitter, and then we immediately dropped into the pandemic right after that. In 2021 was when I hired everybody else in this picture. We grew very quickly, very fast. Through those 2 years. I was really grateful for that experience. Really sad to leave everybody when we relocated to Colorado. My family is in the bottom lower corner there. Looks like we're hiking. We're at Rocky Mountain National Park in Estes, Colorado. I will point out that big snowy mountain in the background. It was June. It was actually the middle of June that we were hiking. For this Carolina girl, having to adjust to having snow in any month of the year has been a brand new experience. But we're an active family. We have I guess she's 10 months old now, golden retriever, who's given us a run for our money. And my 2 kids are why I am an entrepreneur at all. I have really loved letting them see me evolve from a pet sitter, just doing this on the side, to having a team, being a leader in our industry, and now completely switching gears and being a bookkeeper for the pet care industry. It's been really unique for them to see a non-traditional job for them. So that's been exciting. What we're going to discuss today are KPIs. They're called key performance indicators. We're going to discuss what they are, which ones I think are important for businesses to understand, how to interpret them, and what they can tell us about each of our businesses. Key performance indicators can serve as benchmarks for most industries. Things that we think about in terms of a key KPI are net income, profit margin, labor margin. These might be familiar terms. They may be different to you. The point that I always try to make is, again, is that a key performance indicator is any statistic, any number that is guiding you in your business decisions. Some people, it's bottom line profit, what their business is making them after expenses are taken out. That's what we call net income. That can be a number that people use to gauge whether they're increasing or decreasing. Labor margin is the percentage of income that you are devoting to labor costs. For people who are focused on increasing or decreasing a team, may be hyper-focused on labor margin. Again, not every KPI is going to be applicable to your business, depending on where you are in the life of your business. We work with people who are solo and people who have teams. We work with small boutique businesses and very big companies. And so every business is focused a little bit differently. Customer KPIs, like an acquisition cost, what it costs you to bring in a new customer on average. Lifetime value of your customers. What is the average lifetime value? When you have a person come into your business, what can you expect for them to stay over time? How much revenue are they going to bring into your business? Or can you estimate that? There's lots of different KPIs. We're going to do a mix of both financial and customer KPIs today. The first one we're going to talk about is revenue growth. And I have tried to organize each of these different key performance indicators with the reports that PetPocketbook does provide you. So we're going to move from sales all the way through, I think, to the client and financials. But revenue growth, when we talk about this, is very simply the growth of numbers from one period to the next. We can talk about a month's worth of sales. So if we're looking at February income versus March income versus April? What is the change that is happening between each month? Are we gaining in revenue growth? Does it mean that we are bringing in more money in March than we did in February? Or maybe we're talking about it in terms of a full year's growth. Maybe we're looking at 2023 revenue or income compared to 2024's. To calculate revenue growth as a KPI, it is simply the current period's revenue or income minus the period before that. So if we're talking about February income as our current period, our prior period would be January. And then whatever the difference is between those two numbers, we divide it by the prior period. And I've got an example on the next slide for us to walk through. If February sales are $450 for the month, March sales are $700, and April sales are $1,000. I want to look at the month-to-month growth between February and March and between March and April. So to start, I take I take current period, which is March, and I'm going to compare it to the month before. So 700 minus 450 from February is $250. Divide that by February's month is 450. And so the difference between February and March shows me that I have about a 56% growth. So what I did, again, just to walk through that, March numbers minus February numbers divided by February gives me the 0.55 number. Multiply that by 100%, and that gives me the amount of growth from one month to the next. If I do the same calculation in April and compare back to March, I do the $1,000 in April sales minus the 700 from March divided by 700. That gives me 300 divided by March sales of 700, giving me about a 43% growth. And what this tells me, if I'm looking at this month over month, is that I grew 56% between February and March, but only grew 43% between March and April. Still growth, it's just growth that's maybe slowed down a little bit. Now we're talking just straight income and sales in these numbers, but I think when we can get even more specific with this is if we look at these numbers based on the services that you're performing. So if I want to look at the growth of my dog walking sales month over month and my pet sitting income month over month and compare the two to know which one is growing faster, which one is decreasing. Maybe I'm seeing a reduction in sales. Maybe there's a cool off period between one or the other, or if I am focused on growing a particular category of income. This revenue growth calculation, watching its trends month over month, can give me some really detailed information about my business. It can tell me how to put marketing efforts into place. If I want to grow dog walking over pet sitting, I'm going to push maybe my marketing efforts there because it's a slower growing part of my business and I want it to bump up a little bit more. It also just tells me the popularity of a business if I've got a difference in sales between the two categories. Profit margin. So this tells us what is left over after we have total income and we take all of our business expenses out of it. What is left over? When we look at a profit and loss statement, if you guys are familiar with a P&L report or an income statement, as it's often called as well, it shows you, again, total income for a period of time minus all of your expenses for a period of time. When we talk about the margin portion of profit, we're just going to turn that into a percentage number. So when we take income minus expenses and divide it by income, that tells us the percentage of our income that is retained after business expenses are taken out. For solo operators, this tends to be around 70 to 80% for the service-based businesses that I have provided service for. As a general rule, I think we can see anywhere between 50 and 80%. I consider 70 to 80 to be healthy, meaning that we're not spending a lot in other extraneous expenses. For businesses who are working with a team, labor costs take a significant portion of that out, and we see that our profit margin drops to closer to around 20 to 30%. This varies greatly depending on how much the business owner is in the field and performing services that they may not be paying themselves for. A lot of times I will see business owners who are in the field, they're subsidizing their labor cost, where they have other field staff out performing services, that their profit margin may be a little bit higher as a result of that. And I'll give an example here. So if we have a total income for the year of $98,345, and our total expenses, everything that was paid out for the business for the year, was $56,639. Subtracting the two, we have a net income of $41,706. That is what's left over of the income we made after business expenses are removed. When we want to put this in perspective as a percentage of our income, we take total income, $98,345, minus all of our expenses, gives us the $41,706. Divide that number by total income, so $41,706 divided by $98,345 gives us a profit margin of 43%. This I track monthly with my clients because I want to see and be able to enact any changes in their expenses quickly. So we look at this monthly. Every time we run a P&L report, we pull it every month after everything has been reconciled and looked at, checked for accuracy. I look at labor margin, which we'll talk about in a minute, and profit margin, because this is telling me how the business is spending their money. And it's telling me if there's a lot of volatility month over month, then maybe we need to find ways to stabilize that. If we look at 43% and we realize that that is not leaving enough left over to pay the business owner, or it doesn't leave enough left over to cover estimated tax payments that have not been accounted for yet, or other savings or investment opportunities the business has, then we need to make an adjustment somewhere, whether that is decreasing our expenses or finding a way to increase our income. This is probably the one KPI that we look at most with our businesses. When we talk about labor margin, looking at what it costs you to pay staff to go out and perform services. In a service-based business, labor tends to be the #1 expense for most business owners. It can take up as much as 55% of your income. And as everyone is very familiar with our current labor market these days, it's incredibly hard to continue to bring labor in at minimum wage rates. We're seeing our labor costs increase to be able to retain good staff. So this is probably the second biggest KPI that we talk about frequently with our clients. Understanding what it costs you to send somebody out into the field is hugely important. Whether you pay per piece or per hour with your staff people, knowing what it's going to take you to send somebody out in the field to do it informs how you price costs to your clients. It informs what's left over for other expenses to come out. How efficiently is your labor working? Do you have people that are supposed to be on a 30-minute visit? You're paying by the hour and they wind up staying 45 minutes. Now you've paid an extra 15 that you don't get to 15 minutes of time that you're not necessarily recouping from your customers. And that can upset your labor costs. When we talk about a margin, again, similar to profit margin, we're going to put this into terms in a percentage of income. What percent of your income are you spending in labor costs? We take income minus the labor costs for the same period, divided by total income, multiply that by 100%. And my example on the next page, if we have a total income for the year of $125,000, we have payroll wages of $35,000, payroll taxes of 12, mileage reimbursements of about 5. So when we talk about the cost of labor, I consider all the wages that you pay for field staff, the reciprocating payroll taxes, and your mileage reimbursements all make up your cost of labor. Sometimes, depending on the business and how it's being run, we will also include transaction fees into this comparison here. The idea is everything that is directly related to performing the service in the field should be accounted for in labor costs. And if every single transaction is being charged to a credit card and you are experiencing that transaction fee, we will sometimes throw that into this so that we're looking at the full cost of performing that service in the field. Adding up wages, taxes, and mileage reimbursements in this example gives us a total cost of labor of $53,353. I take total income, the $125,692, minus our cost of labor, $53,353, and then divided by total income. That gives me a labor margin of about 58% when it's all calculated. I spent 58% of my income for that year on labor costs to get people out to do services. For a healthy business, I like to see labor margins around 50%. Again, this varies widely if we have owners who are also out in the field performing services and not paying themselves the same way that they would their staff and employees. A lot of times we don't pay ourselves an hourly wage when we're out in the field, or we don't pay per service we perform if we're out there doing it ourselves. And so often we can see a labor margin significantly shrunk, even though you're working with a team. If you have a business owner that's performing a big chunk of those services on their own, their costs aren't included in that. We're subsidizing our labor costs that way. If an owner is completely out of the field, relying 100% on their team to perform field labor, 50% or less is where I like to see people. However, it can be as high as 55, sometimes even 60%, and still be a profitable business. It really just depends on all the other expenses involved in your business, what each business owner needs to get out of their business, and what is left over based on the volume of where they're performing at.
I just wanted to point out as well, with PetPocketbook, you won't have those processing fees for credit cards because when payments are processed through PetPocketbook, the service fee we cover your processing fees for you. You aren't charged that, so it doesn't even have to be included in this. So it's just something to keep in mind for everyone that's using PetPocketbook.
Yes, I forgot that little piece, and that's very unique to PetPocketbook. I don't know many other businesses where that is pay processing systems where that is included for it. So moving on to your customer report that you can pull in PetPocketbook and talking about some of these customer KPIs, acquisition cost is one when we're talking about how our marketing efforts are paying off. Knowing where we are getting customers from, whether it's through Facebook ads, Google ads, an event that you're out at in your community, whatever your marketing tools are, it's important to consider the cost that you put into that marketing effort and what it brings back to you in terms of customers. Simple equation here, total amount of your sales and marketing costs divided by the number of new customers acquired. Now you can run this calculation for the whole breadth of all of your marketing activities to know exactly what it costs or has cost you in the past to gain one new customer. But I find that this gets, again, really impactful when we can break this down into each individual avenue of marketing that you have to know which one is performing better. If you'll go to the next slide, I'll show a couple of different examples. So this is an example of taking your total advertising and marketing cost for the year. $3,518 was spent in all of your advertising efforts. it gained you 13 new customers through the year. So when we do 3518 divided by 13, that comes out to $270 per customer was spent to gain those 13 new clients. That's a great number to have. It tells me kind of where I'm at today, but it doesn't give me enough information to judge what has been worth my efforts. In the next example, I break out the marketing costs by the different avenues. If you can switch to the next one. Here we have Facebook ads, events, and Google ads have made up the totality of that 3518. We spent our advertising money in 3 different places. Facebook ads cost us $756 for the year. The events that we attended cost us $2,500. Maybe that was a booth fee, supplies that you had to hand out to people during that event. And then Google ads, it was $262. Again, knowing what I spent in each avenue is great to know, but it doesn't tell me as much as knowing how many clients I got out of each effort. So of the 13 clients we got last year, 8 came from Facebook ads, 1 came from events, and 4 came from Google ads. When we break out the per cost of each of those clients that were gained in each of those different sectors, we find that Facebook cost us $94.50 per client that it brought in. The events cost us all $2,500 because we only got 1 out of the events that we did. And Google ads only brought in 4 clients, but they only cost us $65.50. Now I feel as if I can make an informed decision about where I want to spend my money next when I consider my marketing for 2024. If Google ads could get me 4 clients and only cost me $65 each, I'd rather put more money in them. That's a cheaper client to bring in. It's cheaper for me to bring them in through Google ads. I may not do another event because it was really expensive and did not bring in the clients that I would have wanted out of that amount spent. And Facebook, comparable to my Google ads. So I might put a little bit more effort in there because it got me quite a few clients. But the cheapest, the biggest bang for my buck, it was my Google ads last year. So that tells me, gives me at least a jumping off point in deciding where I want to spend my advertising money next year. Talking a little bit about customer acquisition cost, one of the unique features that PetPocketbook has is that location of where your clients are centered. So being able to do similar calculations on acquisition cost based on where your clients are located. If you want to target a particular neighborhood, if you want to target a particular zip code, you can again get really specific with your marketing dollars by looking at some of those details in your records, in what you've got there in PetPocketbook to tell you. Customer lifetime value. This is a beast of a number to calculate. And I'm going to talk about it in terms of averages. But what I want to point out is that PetPocketbook does this for each of your clients automatically. And you don't even have to think about how all of the different parts and pieces that go into this. The benefit to knowing your customer lifetime value is understanding how long on average customers stay with you and what value they're bringing into your business. So if we know that a customer stays with you for 2 years, and we know on average they spend about $200 with you, and we know that they purchase 4 or 5 times a year, that informs us how frequently they're buying from us, in what quantity, and how long we can expect them to stay with us. That gives us a value over their lifetime value. And I just rattled those numbers off, so I haven't done the math in my head, but we'll show an example here in a second. But it gives you an idea of what that each new customer coming into you, what their potential is for your business. So knowing what it costs you to bring in one client, if it's $65, but you know over the average lifetime that client is going to bring you $2,500 in, that 65 is well spent. When we talk about all the parts, so there's three things again that make up customer lifetime value calculation. The average purchase value each customer spends at a time, the frequency with which they spend with you, and their lifespan, how long they stay with you through your business. To calculate average purchase value, you're going to do total revenue in a given month or a given year divided by the number of purchases made. This could be the number of services, or it could be the number of invoices, however you deem you want to break this down and what it makes sense for your business. Typically, I do total revenue divided by invoices. I want to know the average purchase, the average invoice value that is made. Average purchase frequency is then takes the total number of invoices divided by the number of unique customers. And that's going to tell me the number of purchases per client in a given time frame. And then a customer lifespan, we would calculate by taking the date that they first enrolled with you, the first purchase they made as a customer to your business, and the last purchase that they made. What is the difference between that? So if they came in January 1st of 2022, and their last purchase was December of 2023, that's a 2-year lifespan. Usually I recommend that you calculate the lifespan of every customer and then you average that out for your business. This typically is a KPI that I run annually. It's a meaty one to look at every month, although PetPocketbook makes it a little bit easier for you to see how those numbers change. If you'll go to my example here. So again, we have a total income, and I'm looking at a year's worth of information here. So if we have $125,000 in total income that was made up of 453 separate invoices, we have an average purchase value of $277, means that on average, one invoice is about $277. To get average purchasing frequency, we take that number of purchase, 453 invoices, was made by 89 unique customers, different clients. So we have an average purchase frequency of about 5. So your average customer in this case purchases from you 5 times out of the year at $277 each time. If our average lifespan of all of our clients is about 3 years, we expect that most clients will stay with us around 3 years, some more, some less. We multiply all those together to get our customer lifetime value. So that's $277 per purchase made 5 times in a year times the 3 years gives us an average value of about $4,000 per customer that we bring into our business. So again, when we consider our marketing and what it takes us to bring in one single customer each year, and then now we can compare it to what we expect that customer to bring into our business. So in the case of a Google ad, $65 spent to bring in a customer who has the potential of spending $4,000 with us makes it really easy for me to decide to spend advertising dollars on Google Ads. Now I can get specific and I can pull these numbers and get a customer lifetime value of just those customers who find us through Google Ads. And that number could be very different than what our total average is. And then again, I can make that decision of whether or not Google Ads brings us a higher value client over Facebook or over an event. Maybe that one client that we spent $2,500 on, maybe those clients that come in from events that cost us $2,500 bring in an average of $10,000 over their lifetime. That starts to change my opinion of whether or not I spend money on events. So getting to understand these numbers can really help you inform or help you make informed decisions with your business. It's very hard to take face value numbers without digging a little bit deeper and understanding them to make good decisions, in my opinion. We really have to get down into the nitty-gritty of, again, digging as fine a detail as we can when we're trying to make decisions of where we spend our money in our business. I think that was my last one. Yep, that was it. So, any questions about KPIs, about PetPocketbook, about reports, or how to run numbers? Let's have them.
Yeah, I'll kick things off. Samantha submitted a question. I think this was best answered for me. Do you plan on adding hourly as an option for staff compensation? Yes, that will be something that we add in the future so that you'll be able to choose how you'd like to pay your team, and that will be another option that's available to you. So once we have that option, that will of course be updated in the system, and you can take that in consideration with your reporting as well. Any other questions from Anne-Marie? And please feel free to unmute yourself to ask the questions. They don't have to go through the chat too. I have a question for you, Anne-Marie. When you're working with the client, are you giving them advice or kind of telling them how they fall in comparison to your other clients? Are you kind of breaking that down for them? Because sometimes, you know, numbers are great and you have them, but then it's like, what do you do with these things? So you help them with that as well?
Absolutely. So we definitely bleed into what some might call a CFO or advisory role with the majority of our clients. It's very, there's no way for me to turn that off. I have the experience. I've lived in, worked through many of the challenges that a lot of our clients are also facing. All of our bookkeepers on staff have also worked in some capacity in the pet care industry. We have people who are pet sitters part-time as well as bookkeepers who also work in the boarding and daycare industry or have come from there, from the veterinary field. So we all have our fingers in this industry pretty deeply. So yes, there's a lot of advisement that goes with it. Just to talk a little bit about our services, we do monthly bookkeeping where we are doing the categorization of transactions. We're managing your QuickBooks or your accounting system, generating your reports on a monthly basis, and then we meet with our clients monthly to really walk through what your numbers are telling you about your business, how to interpret them. It is never, ever my intent to just present somebody with a pile of reports and say, go forth and read. We want to make sure that you understand those numbers and how to interpret them for your business. So a lot of times we're talking about hiring challenges and pricing challenges or investment choices of whether or not they bring on new staff or a new payroll system, whatever it may be.
That's really cool. And I feel like what's part of what makes you really unique is that you have that experience in the industry. So you're able to serve as that trusted advisor as well. That's really awesome.
So are you saying that you would be able to help the business owners strategize where they should focus on, say, more dog walks or more overnight sitting?
Absolutely. Yes, we can. I mean, we oftentimes take into account what your current goals are for your business. If you're trying to increase a particular service category, or maybe you're changing tracks from providing overnight care to just doing drop-in service or vice versa. We've tackled that with a lot of our clients, being able to frame their numbers in a way that they can make that decision of what makes the most sense for them. And we're also tracking. So if it's a goal to increase a certain category, we're going to start breaking those numbers out so that you can very clearly see month over month what that income is generating for you or what those expenses are doing.
Hi. I just am wondering what made you go from being a solo owned like pet sitter to like making the jump to hiring employees, because I'm solo owned and operated and I'm interested in hiring. So
So at the time that I had my pet sitting business in North Carolina, I was coming out of being a stay-at-home mom for 10 years and really wanted something that was going to be for myself and to build up. At that particular time in my life, my pet sitting business was intended to eventually become passive income for me. I wanted to get out of the field and have something that was still generating income for our family. So at the time, I had worked for 3 years, nonstop, 24/7, rarely taking vacation because I was pushing hard to grow my business. And so I got to a point where I was burning out and needed help and assistance for the times that I was sick or needed to take a vacation. I spent a lot of time working at home while my husband and kids would go visit family, and realized that I didn't want to do that forever. So that was our first push to hire. And then once I got over the hump and realized how easy it was to hire and to manage staff, I just didn't stop. I mean, we just kept hiring after that because it just helped us scale the business as we grew. And coming out of the pandemic was just, it was meteoric for us. I think it was combined with the fact that Raleigh was one of the top places to live in the state for a while. We had a lot of influx in people, and I couldn't sustain that on my own. I needed the business to grow, and I needed it to be more than just me.
Thank you.
Of course.
Hi, I put a question in the chat. I just wanted it was more for PetPocketbook, but I was just wondering how you reflect refunds in PetPocketbook. I mean, it's not a discount, you know, if a client changes their mind and you have a refund policy.
Yeah, so is that something that in this instance, in this example here, is that a payment that you're collecting outside of the system or that you would be collecting through PetPocketbook?
I mean, I think it would depend on how that client chose to pay. I have a deposit requirement for boarding in advance. So in this case, this particular client chose a payment outside of PetPocketbook, but I do have
Sure.
clients that do credit cards in PetPocketbook. So this one happened to be a Zelle payment.
Yeah, absolutely. So in PetPocketbook, if it goes through the platform, if the payment is made through the platform, the refund will go through the platform as well. So there's a way for us to show that refund. If it's something that you've collected outside, let's just say it was a cash payment, for example, you'll be able to delete that record of the payment from PetPocketbook, and then you can use like a discount adjustment to be able to account for that. Let me figure out what the best recommended way from our team is though, because I know how to do that, but I just want to make sure that's like the method we would recommend in terms of bookkeeping and keeping everything's clean. So I can definitely check with the team there.
Thank you.
Yeah, of course. And Melissa, do you mind just shooting me or the support team an email so I can make sure to reach out to you directly? My email is just nicole@petpocketbook.com, or you can reach out support@petpocketbook.com.
Sure thing.
Thank you.
I have another question about hiring. The first step is obviously figuring out like what you're going to use for like a payroll service, I would imagine, and then like workers' compensation insurance. Like, how did you go about looking for those things?
Yeah, so I like Gusto is my payroll provider of choice.
Okay.
I've been with them since we did our first hire in 2020.
Mhm.
And I think they're just easy to use. They kind of walk you through all the steps and state requirements that need to happen for you, and making sure that you're registered with the right state agencies before you hire. So that was my first choice, making sure that it was easy and simple. And Gusto for me checked that box. But truly, I would recommend looking at lots of different payroll providers. There are more out there on the market than when I was just looking just 4 or 5 years ago. OnPay, ADP, they're ones that we work with regularly as bookkeepers, and I've gotten to know better. So depending on the level of service you need for them, if you need to have health benefits or retirement packages, then something like ADP may fit a little bit better and have more options for you than something that's a little bit smaller like Augusto or OnPay. But that was our first step. definitely learning how to get quotes for workers' comp. That was kind of a new field. I worked with an insurance broker to help me with that one. But now I think Gusto offers lots of things integrated with them that seems to be adequate. Double checking your liability insurance to make sure you know what covers employees and staff at that point, and then learning what each state, what your home state requires of employers. Everybody is a little bit different. Here in Colorado, we have to pay, they have to be able to accrue sick time pay, PTO. So we had to make sure that we incorporated that here, whereas North Carolina didn't have it when we were there. They were very employer friendly, so there were very few things that we had to make sure we did compared to here. California has its own set of rules and regulations that make life oh so fun to work through there as well. So understanding your state laws and labor laws is probably the biggest piece, and I think that's the one that intimidates most people, is learning all those little pieces before they decide to hire.
Awesome. Thank you. And then what are your fees for your bookkeeping service?
So it can definitely bleh. Let me think of how to put this. It starts at $250 a month for our base standard package. Depending on the complexity and volume of transactions that your business is producing, it can go up from there. Most small businesses that are under $50,000 a year are in our $250 a month range. That includes managing your QuickBooks account, reconciling against your bank statements each month, producing your financial reports, and that hour video conference call each month. Yep.
Thank you very much.
Of course.
I have a quick question in regards to, hi, Anne-Marie, how are you? It's great to see
Hey,
you again.
Joni.
So besides QuickBook, are there other options you would say that would be helpful?
Absolutely. Xero, and it's Xero. I believe they are an Australian-based company. They are probably one of the bigger competitors to QuickBooks. They are similar in reach in that they're a cloud-based software, accounting-based system. It is a paid service for them. And I like them. They're just enough different that we chose not to work with them because it was just one more software for our staff to learn. Wave Apps is a fabulous free option for people who want to do their own bookkeeping. It's a little bit less robust than I would like when we are handling and being involved in somebody's books. But for a free option and for someone to do it themselves, it's a fantastic program. You can connect your bank accounts. It pulls in transactions for you automatically. It produces a balance sheet and an income statement report for you and a cash flow statement. So you get most of the accounting principles that we would recommend having in place for business owners. For that. So those are the three between QuickBooks, Xero, and Wave that we typically recommend. Others out there are Peachtree, Sage. Oh, there's one I'm forgetting that's big. Some of those tend to be for much larger companies and are hard to adapt for small businesses. The complexity of those are really difficult. There's QuickBooks Desktop, which is different from the QuickBooks Online. I should specify that. Desktop tends to be a local accounting system that's on your computer specifically, where QuickBooks Online is a cloud-based software. We work specifically with the online version. Desktop is a little bit more complex and a little bit more difficult to access remotely for us, but those are kind of the big ones out there.
Thank you.
Very welcome.
We had a question in the chat from Tracy. Are you accepting new clients, and how can people get in touch with you?
Absolutely. We are accepting new clients. I will say that we are in a little bit of a growth period right now. So I do say that we're probably onboarding new clients in May right now, just give us a little bit of breathing room with tax time still kind of being in a crunch right now. And we will be hiring additional staff in the next few months as well, so that we can take on more capacity. So yes, if anybody wants to reach out and inquire about our services, you can email or text me. My info is there on the page that we have sharing. But the best way to get started with us is to fill out the contact form on our website. It's tinypawsbookkeeping.com/contact. What that does is it kicks off and sends you an automated scheduling link so that you can get right onto our calendar with a day and time that works best for you. And that's usually, we have a 30-minute phone conversation to just kind of understand what you're looking for, and where we can help out. Any other questions?
What is the NAPS conference that you guys met at?
Ooh,
Joni, do you
would
want to talk about
like
that?
to talk about naps?
I'm so glad you asked, Courtney. NAPS is a National Association of Professional Pet Sitters. So it's a nonprofit organization that's set up for pet sitters. And if you are interested in it, you can go to petsitters.org, and they have a 10-day free trial. And we have phenomenal vendors and phenomenal speakers, hence Nicole and Anne-Marie. Anne-Marie presented there, and it's a great opportunity to network and learn so much. So, and then there's also other, I'm sorry, go ahead.
No, I was just going to say that coming home from the NAPS conference, it just puts so much wind in your sail, if you will. You feel so inspired. You feel like you have met a bunch of people that you can relate to. It's such a fun conference, but also you learn a ton too. So there's incredible value in that. And Joni and the team at NAPS do an incredible job, and they're all volunteers too. So you know that they're people that truly care about this industry.
Like basically all the money that goes in goes back into doing the conferences. We don't keep any money. And I'm going to tell you that Anne-Marie took a subject that usually blows my mind and I want to run from. And she did an amazing job, as she did today. It's that kind of caliber of speakers that we have. Thank you for letting
That's
me.
great. That's awesome. When is the next one?
The next one will be around the same time. It's usually around March. We kick off Pet Sitters Week around that time.
Awesome. Thank you. I'll look into it.
It was
Thank you.
fantastic. NAPS was the first conference that I attended last year, and for being kind of a newbie into the conference field, it's such a warm and inviting environment. Pet sitters are some of the best people that I think I've ever met. We're all compassionate people, and we're all sometimes slightly introverted. And so it makes it nice to feel like you're walking into a room of the same kind of people where you can talk cats and dogs, and nobody looks at you weird. But it's a small group. I think you had less than 150 people, Joni, at this year's.
This year's we almost sold out. It was like 142 people, and the room only held 150.
Yeah. Which, and I've been to conferences that are as big as 600 to 1,000 people, and that can be overwhelming. 100 to 150, like that is such a sweet spot. You can have really great conversations, meet some amazing people, and it doesn't feel like you're shouting over a big room or competing with anybody's attention. And like Joni said, the content is incredible. Really, some of the best people out there in the industry are sharing their time and energy with folks. I've always come away from a conference with more information than I went into.
I will second that. And Courtney, I'm actually working on a blog right now for our NAPS recap. So you'll be able to see what I learned at NAPS. So including Anne-Marie's session and all the other speakers as well. So check that out on our blog. Hopefully sometime next week, it'll have all the details from NAPS and how you can connect and learn from those different speakers from that conference if you're interested.
Hi, sorry, I had a client and I have one more question. For the bookkeeper, I'm sorry, I forgot your name. You were talking about the client value, and you mentioned doing that percentaging by using the total number of invoices.
Mhm.
Why do you use the number of invoices for a client versus the amount of invoice? Like, I was a little confused because what if one invoice is like $50 and another invoice is $300?
So
Did
the
I
object,
understand that? I'm sorry. Thank you.
yeah, no, that's okay. So the idea is to get the average value of each invoice so that you kind of get a sense of whether or not, so you might have a $50 invoice and you might have a $250 invoice. And what I really want is to put this all in one term. And so getting an average value of each invoice is what I'm after when I'm trying to build that average customer lifetime value.
Okay.
Any other questions for Anne Marie before we wrap up?
Nicole, I would like to offer that if anyone reaches out and wants a copy of the slide deck, because I know that some of those calculations are a little bit beefy and it may have been hard to copy, I'm more than happy to provide them, or Nicole can share them with the attendees.
Yeah, absolutely. So next week, once we have the recording of the session, I'm going to go ahead and send a follow-up email. So I'll include the deck that I had today, and as well as Anne Marie, so that you'll be able to spend some more time with that and really dive into some of those reports. If you have questions as they come up, feel free to reach out to me through support, or if you want to reach out to me directly, feel free to. If you're interested in connecting with Anne Marie, use that contact form to get in touch. But really excited and thankful for Anne Marie to be able to join us today. This is a session I was really looking forward to, so I super appreciate you joining us. And as far as everyone else who's still here, if you have any suggestions about what you want to talk about next, or if you have a speaker in mind that you'd like to have join us, please, please, please suggest your ideas. Reach out to me and let me know. We're looking on continuing to do these in the future, so I hope to have more time with each of you and see you in the future. All right.
Thank you so much. Thank you.
Thank you, everyone. Have a great weekend.
Thank you. Awesome as ever, Anne Marie. And thanks,
Thank you,
Nicole.
Joni.
Thank you.
See
Bye.
everyone. Y'all have a wonderful weekend.
All right. Like I said, you guys have questions, feel free to email me directly. Also reach out to Anne Marie if you're interested in learning more. But thank you again and have a great weekend.